Today is the 11th of October 2025. The day before yesterday, I spoke about two essential characteristics of the mind. It travels alone, it is without a body. So I discussed these two natures of the mind. Today, let us reflect on the last nature of the mind. The mind abides in the cave. What does abides in the cave mean? The phrase the mind abides in the cave refers to the truth that the mind abides in the heart base. More precisely, it means the mind arises in the heart base. Here, abides refers to arising, and the cave refers to the heart base. The mind is not something that always exists in the heart base. I repeat, the mind is not something that always exists in the heart base. It arises only when favorable conditions come together, just like fire arises only when there is fuel, oxygen, and a spark. When those necessary conditions are present, the mind arises, and it does so from the heart, which serves as its source and support. So according to the text, the heart base is the physical foundation for mind or consciousness and other associated mental phenomena. This heart base is a material form, that serves as the seat of the mind. Is important to understand that this does not refer to the anatomical heart in a biological sense. Rather, it refers to the subtle physical base located in the region of the heart and is said to be dependent on the blood found within that area. So it is said to be dependent on the blood found within that area. It is the physical location where consciousness and mental factors arise, particularly those not associated with the five senses. So not all consciousness arise in the heart base, while most types of mind consciousness arise dependent on the heart base. Not all consciousness does. Certain types of sense consciousness arise at their respective sense bases. Like seeing consciousness arises at the eye base, hearing consciousness arises at the ear base, smelling consciousness arises at the nose base, tasting consciousness arises at the tongue base, touch consciousness arises at the body base. Even the five-door adverting consciousness, which functions as the mind's attention toward sensory input, arises dependent on corresponding sense bases. So while the heart base is the main support for mental activities such as thinking, reflection, emotion, volition, it is not the base for sense-based consciousness. And an essential point to understand is that the mind never arises alone. However, this does not mean two or more minds arise at the same time. As we have already discussed, the mind follows the principle one mind, one object, one moment. What it does mean is that the mind always arises together with its relevant concomitants. It always arises along with mental factors. Mental factors or mental states known in Pali as Cetasika. In the Abhidhamma, Chitta refers to bare awareness, the act of knowing an object, what we have already discussed. However, every chitta is accompanied by at least 7 or more mental factors, at least 7 or more mental factors, which performs specific role in shaping the quality, intention, and ethical knowledge of that mind moment. These mental factors include feeling, perception, volition, faith, mindfulness itself, concentration, greed, anger, delusion, etc. Each mental event is thus a composite, a unified activity consisting of chitta, the mind, and chetasikas, the mental factors. Together they determine whether the mind is wholesome or unwholesome, whether it is deluded or wise, whether it is calm, restless, concentrated, or scattered. We can use a simple analogy to understand this. The mind is like clear, pure water, neutral, formless, and colorless on its own. Mental factors are like colors. When color is added to water, the water takes on that color. For example, when red is added, it becomes red water. When blue is added, it becomes blue water. When black is added, it becomes black water. In the same way, when the mind arises with greed, it becomes a greedy mind. When it arises with anger, it becomes an angry mind. When accompanied by concentration, it becomes a concentrated mind. With joy, a joyful mind. With jealousy, a jealous mind, and so on. So just as water takes the nature of the color added to it, the mind takes the nature of the mental factors, that arise with it. These mental factors shape whether the mind becomes wholesome or unwholesome, peaceful or agitated, as source of suffering or liberation. Altogether, there are 52 mental factors. 52 mental factors. Some of them are polluting, some are purifying, some arise only with wholesome mind, others arise only with unwholesome minds, and some can arise with both. So finally, it's important to remember this: the mind and its associated mental factors arise together. They arise together. They take the same object. The mind and the mental factors, they take the same object, depend on the same physical base. They depend on the same physical base and cease together in each moment. The four natures or the qualities or features of the mind and the mental factors. I repeat, the mind and the mental factors, the associated mental factors arise together, take the same object, depend on the same physical base, and cease together in each moment. So they function in unison, moment by moment, creating the stream of experience that we call the mind. So these are the four natures of the mind in the verse we are discussing. The mind travels far, it travels alone, it is without a body, and it arises in the heart space. The mind arises and passes away in each and every moment, forming a stream of consciousness like the continuous flow of water. This mind stream has been flowing since a beginning that is unknowable, and it will continue to flow until full enlightenment is attained. The main objective of meditation is to prevent enemies from entering the mind stream, to keep the mind protected, guarded, and safe through the development of mindfulness, and to uproot the defilements through the development of the wisdom. Because mindfulness is itself a wholesome mental factor that arises together with the mind. When this wholesome mind is present, unwholesome states have no room to arise. They are kept out. Mindfulness serves as a mental guard with the power to protect, defend, and keep the mind safe from unwholesome states and defilements. It is the quality that watches over the mind, keeping it from being overtaken by greed, hatred, delusion, or distraction. As the result, the mind stream becomes free from defilements. And when the mind is free from defilements, calmness and peacefulness naturally arise. Calmness and peacefulness naturally arise. At the same time, mindfulness gives rise to joy, happiness, and mental comfort, qualities that nourish and sustain the meditative path. So that happiness or that mental bliss becomes the proximate cause for the arising of concentration samadhi. The happiness, mental bliss becomes the proximate cause for the arising of concentration. In Pali, this is referred to as Sukha Badatthana. Sukha Badatthana. Sukha means happiness or mental comfort, is the proximate cause for concentration samadhi. This is how mindfulness plays a role, vital role by guarding the mind and clearing away defilements. It creates a calm, joyful, and blissful mental environment, allowing concentration to arise naturally and steadily. A good moment of mindfulness is essential for concentration to arise. Concentration does not come by force or willpower alone. It depends on the presence and the continuity of mindfulness. This is why we cultivate mindfulness not just in formal sitting or walking meditation, but also during daily activities, standing, eating, drinking, washing or dressing. The flow of mindfulness throughout the day creates the conditions for stable and wholesome concentration to develop naturally. This is why in the past few Dhamma talks, I have been emphasizing the unbroken continuity of mindfulness, because the longer the continuity of unbroken mindfulness, the deeper the mindfulness becomes, and the deeper the mindfulness, the easier it is for concentration to arise. So now, having laid the foundation through mindfulness, it is time to speak about concentration, known in Pali as samadhi, and technically as ekaggata. Ekaggata meaning one-pointedness of mind. The characteristic of samadhi is non-dispersal or non-dissipation or non-scatteredness. This means that when concentration is present, the mind does not disperse, dissipate, or scatter. Instead, it sticks with the object of observation, remains calm, and stays firmly present with the meditative object. This is the characteristic of samadhi concentration. The function of samadhi is collectiveness or unification. Collectiveness or unification is the function of samadhi. It unifies or gathers together all the mind and coexisting mental factors onto a single object. For example, when you observe the rising of the abdomen and concentration is present, all the mental factors, including the mind itself, are unified on that rising. When you observe the falling and concentration is present, it collects the mind and all associated mental factors into the falling, not allowing the mind to scatter. Similarly, when you observe sensations, movements of the feet, or daily actions, if concentration is present, the mind remains stable and collected. All the mental energies are well unified in the object of observation rather than being pulled in different directions. This is the function of the concentration samadhi. There are two analogies mentioned in the text to clarify the function of concentration. The first is that of a king on the battlefield. Just as a king, upon seeing which part of his army is weakening, goes directly to that spot, and wherever the king goes, the army regathers, strengthens, and regains order. Once the enemy is driven back, the troops again rally round the king. In the same way, in this mental battlefield of meditation, when the associated mental factors become scattered or distracted, it is samadhi that brings them back together. It restores focus, unification, and mental order. This is the first example. The second analogy is that of water binding flour to make dough. When you make dough, you begin with dry flour. If you pour in water and knead it, the flour particles come together and form a single cohesive mass. Without water, the flour remains loose and scattered, but once water is added, it holds everything together. In the same way, samadhi functions like water. It binds all the associated mental factors, allowing the mind to become unified, stable, and workable, just like well kneaded dough. So these are two analogies mentioned in the text to clarify the function of concentration. Now, manifestation. Calmness is the first manifestation of samadhi. There are two manifestations. So calmness is the first manifestation of samadhi. This means that when concentration is present, the mind is calm and composed. This is because defilements that disturb, agitate, and cause restlessness in the mind are temporarily absent. When these disturbing factors are suppressed, the mind naturally becomes peaceful, steady, and quiet, revealing the presence of samadhi. I have mentioned that when mindfulness is present, it protects, blocks, and defends the mind, keeping it safe from defilements by not admitting them and by freeing the mind from their influence. Mindfulness also helps to free the mind from distractions. However, when concentration develops, it goes further. It suppresses the defilements more deeply and effectively, at least temporarily. As a result, the mind becomes purer, cleaner, and a sense of calmness and stillness becomes more vivid and stable. In fact, concentration goes beyond simply holding off distractions. It eliminates defilements temporarily. The text refers to this as tadanga pahana, which means dispelling defilements by way of temporary suppression or momentary elimination. When concentration is strong, defilements such as greed, hatred, restlessness, and doubt are cut off at the surface level. They do not arise in that moment. As a result, the mind becomes cleaner, purer, and more peaceful, and this clarity allows for deeper insight to arise. So to understand more, there are three levels of eliminations of defilements. There are three levels of eliminations of defilements. The first in Pali, tadanga pahana, temporary or momentary elimination. Momentary elimination, this refers to the momentary elimination of defilement through the arising of opposing wholesome mental states. In meditation, when mindfulness and especially concentration are strong, defilements cannot arise. They are cut off at the very moment. They are eliminated, dispelled temporarily as long as these wholesome states are present. This type of elimination can be applied not only during formal meditation but also in daily life, like when anger arises and you consciously cultivate loving kindness, metta is opposite. That is tadanga pahana, momentary elimination of anger. When you feel stinginess and intentionally develop generosity, that too is temporary elimination through substitution. When envy rises and you reflect with appreciative joy that we call mudita in Pali towards others' success, the defilement is momentarily removed. In each case, the unwholesome state is not allowed to overtake the mind because a stronger opposing wholesome state has taken its place. However, momentary elimination of defilements during meditation is more effective because the effort, mindfulness, loving kindness, concentration involved are, are generated through bhavana, through mental development or cultivation. In this case, the mind is well trained, collected, and intentionally directed to our wholesome states. It is like lightning flashing in a dark night. For a brief moment, the darkness disappears and everything becomes clear and visible. This is a momentary elimination of darkness. In the same way, when momentary concentration that we call in Pali Khanika Samadhi arises during meditation, it dispels the defilements temporarily, though they are yet eradicated, they are pushed away and the mind becomes clear, focused and undisturbed, just like the flash of light that overcomes the darkness, even if only for a moment. So this is the first elimination, momentary elimination. The second is Vikambana Pahana, the suppression or elimination for more than a moment through strong concentration or jhana absorption. This refers to the deeper suppression of defilements through powerful mental development, particularly deep concentration such as jhana. In this state, defilements are not just momentarily dispelled as in Dadanga Pahana, momentary elimination, but are held at bay move forcefully and effectively, unable to arise for the duration of that absorption. However, this is still not permanent eradication. When concentration fades, the defilements can reappear unless they are removed through deeper insight and path wisdom. It is said that this suppression keeps the defilements at bay at a distance so they do not disturb the mind for a longer period. Just like when someone pushes away forcefully moss or floating weeds on the surface of water in order to draw clean water, the moss or floating weeds do not immediately return. It takes time to float back. In the same way, through the deep concentration, defilements are pushed away and held off, creating a space for clarity and purity in the mind, even if temporarily. And this type of elimination is especially experienced when one develops absorption or jhana. However, it can also experienced during vipassana meditation. Now, how is that possible? Before answering this question, I would first like to clarify a common misunderstanding about concentration that many meditators have. There are two types of samadhi concentration. One is continuous concentration, continuous samadhi, which is the concentration gained while meditating on a single object. Remember this point, meditating on a single object, just one object continuously. And this is usually not an ultimate reality. We call in Pali Paramattha Dhamma, not an ultimate reality, but a conceptual object. We call in Pali Panyati, such as the breath, or kasina disc, or loving kindness, and so on. So this is about the continuous samadhi concentration developed through the tranquility meditation. I repeat I would like to repeat the main points of this continuous samadhi. While practicing this continuous samadhi, while meditating on a single object, just one object, and that object is not ultimate reality, a conceptual object. And this type of concentration is developed in pure tranquility meditation. We call samatha bhavana, samatha meditation, where the primary requirement is for the mind to stay focused on one object to the total exclusion of all other objects. So again, you have to remember this point. To stay focused on one object, the object is, one object means conceptual object, to the total exclusion of all other objects. So those who follow the path of continuous concentration are able to experience it, especially when they gain absorption into jhana. Vipassana practice, however, is aimed toward the development of wisdom and the completion of the various stages of insight. Insight, of course, refers to basic intuitive understanding, such as the distinction between mind and matter, the intuitive comprehension of their interrelationship by virtue of the cause and effect, and the direct perception or understanding of the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness of all physical and mental phenomena. These are basic insights. Insights, other which are more, others which one must traverse before attaining the path and fruition consciousness, which have nibbana or the cessation of all sufferings as their object. In Vipassana practice, the field of awareness of object is crucial important. The field of awareness of object are mental and physical phenomena, unlike the object of samatha meditation. Those things which are directly the experienceable without restoring to the thinking process. In other words, as we practice vipassana, we observe many different objects with the goal of gaining insight into their nature, and the momentary concentration. The second type is the most important in Vipassana practice. Vipassana objects arising and passing away all the time, and momentary concentration arise in each moment with each object. So you should know the difference between true concentration. First, you have to understand the two types of meditation, samatha meditation and vipassana meditation. Samatha meditation observes on a single object, and that is a conceptual object. It completely ignores, it totally ignores all other objects, and it has only one object, whereas Vipassana meditation meditation observes the physical and the mental objects which are rising and passing away continuously, and these physical and mental objects are not conceptual objects. They are ultimate reality, because the objective of practicing insight meditation is development of the insight knowledges and attainment of nibbana through development of path and fruition knowledge. However, the both types of samadhi shares the same characteristic, that is non-dispersion or non-scatteredness of the mind, and they they perform the same function, the collecting or unifying of mental factors onto a single object. They have same characteristic, they have same function, they have same manifestation, the first manifestation. In fact, because there are two manifestations, the first is calmness that we have just discussed. So that calmness, the first manifestation, is also same, uh, shares the both samadhi. Only the second manifestation is especially related to the vipassana concentration. We will discuss about that. Okay, so there is still more to be explained, but for today, may the understanding of the nature, function and manifestation of samadhi help you to develop a non-scattered mind, to unify your attention on the object and to experience the calmness and the stillness of the mind.